Welcome to the Yakuzoku no Neverland cast, the Promised Neverland cast, the show where the show doesn't make sense, everything's fucked up, and fucking Norman's gonna die. Okay, run the intro. The show's been on hiatus for almost a week because I got too busy to record one for episode 8, so we're going to combine episode 8 and episode 9 into one and do one big mega episode. Well, first off, let me just start by saying that episode 7, I was right. It was a setup episode. They were setting it up for the past 2 episodes, which have been just completely mind-bogglingly insane. We've had revelation after revelation that really has led up to kind of the biggest revelation of the entire show. But before we get to all that, let's just start off with episode 8. What went down in episode 8? We kind of had this moment with Sister Krona, and I kind of knew that something was going to happen with her because we ended on episode 7 with Mom reading that letter to the sister, and we were like, okay, what's going to happen? And I said that maybe that Mom was going to leave and Sister Krona was going to be the new caretaker of the house. That turned out not to be the case, and it turned out that Sister Krona was getting shipped off. And at first, what I thought was, okay, Sister Krona's getting shipped off. That's mostly going to be fine. They're going to move her to a different plant. She just wasn't a good fit. But it turns out that Mom has more of a pull in the HQ than we otherwise realized, and Sister Krona got offed almost immediately. And the run-up to her killing, where they showed her entire life played out and how hard she worked to become a sister in the first place, again brought back all the kinds of feels that we had in the previous episode when the sister was chasing people in the forest. It's all just feels. It's a feels train. The past 2 episodes have just been complete feels trains, and I don't really know how to feel. I just watched episode 9, and my mind is going completely crazy. In episode 8, Sister Krona dies. We learn that Mother already knew everything at the end of the episode. She catches the kids. She knows exactly who they are. And she breaks Emma's leg, which is insane. She just breaks Emma's leg for no particular reason. And she's like, oh, hey, this will heal with no scars, as if that's a justification for breaking someone's leg. And she's like, okay, now I've handled the situation. And then she drops the bombshell that Norman is getting shipped off the next day. They've been planning this escape for over a month. Episode 8 is November the 3rd, 2045. So this is just 1 month after they learned everything. And they've somehow managed to put together kind of an escape. And they have a rope and they have a plan to distract Mom. And they're like, okay, we're going to do the test run to escape that day. And then they get into the forest and Mom chases them down. And I almost lost my shit. This show has probably some of the best pacing I've seen in any suspense show for a long time because they're somehow able to capture that feeling of something momentous is about to happen, but at the very last moment, they spin it in such a way that you're like, oh my god, I never saw this happening, but somehow it's still satisfying and it doesn't feel baity, because that's the danger that you can fall into when you start doing this kind of thing. When you pull the rug out from underneath the audience at the very last minute, the danger is that you can kind of leave feeling like you didn't get the ending that you definitely thought was happening, but you didn't like the ending that ended up happening more than the other one. And I think this show has mostly managed to avoid that because Mom is such a character. She's so mysterious that we don't really know what she's going to do at any given point. So she can act kind of completely out of nowhere. And it still makes sense because she is like an all-knowing being. She's watching the kids night and day. She knows them from when they were like a 1-year-old, when they come to the farm, whenever. And she's seen them their whole life, so she can more or less predict their action, and she's somehow able to keep pace of them. And anyway, all the stuff that they were trying to do by scouting out the forest was only based on the fact that they were able to distract her. And she just completely cuts off her ties with Ray, because she's more or less learned that this mutiny is going to happen unless she directly intervenes. Her getting Sister Krona was a way for her to try to deal with it indirectly, and that didn't work. So she's like a gangster, just cutting all the loose ends. She gets rid of Sister Krona first. She cuts her ties with Ray next. She breaks Emma's leg, and she's going to ship off Norman. That effectively cuts the head off the snake. All the lead mutineers in the orphanage are about to get shipped out, and that's what we end episode 8 with Mother breaking Emma's leg and Norman about to be shipped off. So how do we start episode 9? They don't skip a beat. They start exactly where they left off at the end of episode 8. And episode 9 comes with Mom telling everyone that Norman is going to get shipped off. And she just picks up Emma and says, oh, hey, Emma, when you heal up in 2 or 3 months, you're probably going to get shipped off too. And Ray, I hope it's before your birthday, because guess what, buddy? You're getting shipped out too. And with that bombshell, they go to the house and they have to somehow figure out a way to help Norman get out of here. And the smart plan they have is, hey, Norman, this is an ingenious plan by Ray, by the way. I would not have thought of this. He's fixed the tracking device disabling machine. And he's like, with this, we can help Norman escape, but we don't really know how to escape. But because the estate is so big and there's no tracking device, and we know the ground so well because we've lived here for years and years, we can just send him off into the wilderness, and he's just going to be there for a couple months till Emma's leg heals and we can all escape. On the surface, this seems like the best idea ever, right? And I visualized in my head the whole plot line of Norman living in the woods and helping them out in secret. That was a whole amazing thing that was going to happen. But of course, this show doesn't let that happen. So we see them set up for this, and they're like completely convinced that Norman is about to live in the woods for 2 months to hide out before all of them are about to get shipped out, or before they have to make their final escape. And a beautiful moment in the show in episode 9, Norman just turns the tap on the sink and he's like letting the water flow, and for a moment he lets his guard slip and we see him like fall to his knees, and we're like, okay, this show does an amazing job of setting up the stakes. Because if you just look at it as an orphanage, because the premise is so high concept, we sometimes forget that these are just kids living in a house. We sometimes get lulled into a false sense of security that these are just smart kids making a plan to escape. We forget the actual stakes of the event. But then we get a scene like Norman falling to his knees and having to like put his face back on, his smile back on before he goes and talks to his friends. And that scene just made the whole episode for me. It really set up the stakes for what happened later in the episode. So Norman falls to his knees. We see a momentary lapse in his guard. And he goes and talks to his friends, and they talk him into this plan like, hey, tomorrow we're going to fake your escape by using the taser tracking device disabler that Ray made. And you're going to go into the woods and you're just going to hide for 2 months till Emma heals. There's a little scene where Emma's just like viciously eating a piece of bread, and the character logic I thought for that was like, oh, she's trying to heal faster than they expect, so Norman doesn't have to live in the woods as long, so they can make their escape early. And I was like, this is the kind of character motivation that really keeps the show going. And we get this little monologue from Ray about how he has not had infantile amnesia, and that's the reason why he remembers why this house is the way that it is. And we kind of get a little glimpse into what exists on the other side of the house, because really we've never seen what the Demon Society looks like. But Ray is able to explain that, oh, from birth, he's been in the system. They've been divided since birth. The tracking devices are implanted almost as soon as they're like little infants, and they're sent off to the houses. And each house is surrounded by 5 other houses, and in the middle is the HQ, and the gate is the most securely guarded part of the farm. Now, this might seem like extraneous information, but when you put it in context with what happens at the end of the episode, it really makes sense, because they're trying to cut off the alternatives before they establish the main route of escape is not possible. So when they say that the gate is guarded, what they're really saying is you can't escape through the gate. All the security of the farm is focused around the gate, so the wall is the only choice for escape. So really, the gang is pinning all their hopes on the wall, but we don't really know that until later. So the day of the escape arrives. Norman is about to make his escape. He gathers his rope. He uses the taser on his ear. Mom, at the end of the day, checks her little tracker, and she's like, oh, Norman's nowhere to be found. And then she like smiles a little bit. Backtracking a little bit, Norman climbs up the wall in the most unphysical way I could possibly think of. He ties the rope around a tree branch, and like Prince of Persia just wall climbs up the wall. I thought he was going to do like a Batman like grapple hook over to the other side and climb up the rope. But it doesn't even seem like he needs the rope at all, because he's just using the rope as a lever to run up the wall, which didn't make any sense. Like, it's not a pole vault. It's a piece of cloth strapped to a tree. Maybe it was so tense that I don't know, that didn't make any sense. They could have just made a swing and swung over the wall at that point. None of that made any sense, but that's not really the point. So we, as always, with every episode of the show, we end on this cliffhanger of Norman standing on the edge of the wall, overlooking the cliff. Oops. I kind of gave away what the ending was. He's standing on the edge of the wall and he looks out into the forest. And my immediate thought was, oh, it's just forest. It's forest for 1,000 miles. And that's why he's smiling. But of course, that wasn't the case. And at the end of the day, when mom checks her tracker, he comes running back. And the entire gang is just like completely mind boggled as to why he fucked up his own escape and came back. But it turns out the reason he did that was that escape was never possible in the first place. The wall doesn't lead into a forest beyond the wall. The wall leads into a giant cliff. There's like this huge pit outside of the wall, and that's the reason they can't escape in the first place. So, what does that mean? Let's go. Let's go. Rampant speculation about episode 10. Here's what I think is going to happen in episode 10. Norman is like the gang leader of the trio, and it's kind of confirmed now that he's going to die, right? So if we operate with the assumption that what the show wants us to think is that he's going to die, then we have to assume that he doesn't die. Now, we haven't really gotten as attached to Norman as we might have if it was like Emma or Ray that gets killed, because Norman is kind of aloof and like emotionally distant, but that's his character really. So if they do kill him off, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. It'll be the triple bluff. They expect us to expect him to die, and then we know that the twist will be that he doesn't die, so they kill him anyway. It's the unexpected twist. It's the Last Jedi twist that happens, which is the disappointing twist, but that may end up happening. What happens if he dies? I guess the gang just continues to do the escape without him, and he becomes like a martyr for them. But I feel like there's too many loose ends for him to end up dying. I think something will happen where he doesn't get shipped off, or they break his arm or his leg, like Emma said. Find some way for him to not be shipped off, because they theorize that you have to be in perfect shape to get shipped off. This episode, I think, really, I first saw the cracks in the animation, because up till now, the animation has been more or less really good. And the shots, the camera placement is always good, as it always is. But for some reason, this episode, I felt like the budget really started cutting back. And I think that's because there's going to be some demons in the final episodes of the show, and they're really saving their camera movement and animation budget for that. But this episode was able to hit an emotional high without having to do a lot of fancy animation. And really, the only kind of impressive shot of the whole episode was this tracking shot when Norman picks up the glass of water and goes to the room. I thought that was pretty cool, because in some movies they show like the characters like disoriented first person perspective, and I think they managed to accomplish a similar task by just using a simple tracking shot. This show generally uses 3D backgrounds for a lot of the shots inside the house where the camera moves a little faster than you would expect it to, but for some reason this episode I felt like the backgrounds were a little less detailed than they usually are, which doesn't really make sense, but for some reason the art just felt a little bit off this episode, and like I said, I think that's because they're saving the budget for future episodes. To talk about some of the other characters, Don and Gilda did nothing this episode. They're making a rope in a back room, but that blue-eyed boy is showing up again, and I feel like if Norman does die, he might take over as the kind of go-to smart person who knows when things are up, because they've been like just placing him around the place, and it could just be because he's extremely cute. That could be a good enough reason to put him in, but I feel like they're setting him up for some kind of greater role in things. And it could be that Norman does actually leave the house, but somehow manages to escape along the way. That could also be a possibility, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So at the end of this episode, huge cliffhanger, we're just told that there's a giant cliff and Norman can't escape in any way. So if we assume that that's what they want us to think, then Norman could just be a martyr for the rest of the cause, like I already said. But I'm extremely confused, and of course, as always, looking forward to the next episode. I can't wait for it to show up. This show is just getting better and better, extremely well paced, and I was told in a previous episode by a commenter that there's only 37 chapters being used in the first season, the first 12 episodes, so they're using approximately 3 chapters per episode, and that there are already 125 chapters out of the manga. So they have enough material for more than 3 seasons of the show. Now, I don't know if the show has been renewed already for season 2. That's something I'll have to check up on, but I can't see how it wouldn't be, especially with how good it is. I haven't really paid attention to the reception of it, but I feel like this show is so well done that I can't see it not getting a second season, other than for some reason everybody just completely forgot that it existed and didn't watch it at all. That could happen, of course, but even just for the Japanese market, you'd think we'd get a second season at this point. Even if we don't get a second season, I feel like the ending of it is going to be sufficiently good that we do get some kind of closure, because they're definitely setting up some big event. Now, I don't know if the Norman shipping out event will happen in the next episode, because if it does, then we really can't tell what's going to happen in episodes 11 and 12. I feel like there will be a huge season finale because this show has been just full of cliffhangers thus far, and I don't see any reason why they would stray from that at this point. This episode was solid, as always. Very solid episode, except for that weird rope burning scene where Norman just defied physics. I was like, if you can run up the wall like that, why do you even need a rope? Just use your Spider-Man strength and run up the wall. But speaking of Spider-Man strength, just jump across the cliff too. You seem to be supernaturally physically gifted. Promised Neverland. Who knew the show would be so good? Anyway, that's episode 8 and 9 review for you guys. I'll see you next week when episode 10 comes out, and I have no idea what happens, but I'm looking forward to it as always. See you then.